Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Well, this is for anybody who has a family business, or maybe you know somebody involved in one. Maybe you're thinking about starting one. Lots to consider there with the dynamics, the economic challenges that go along with that. There's somebody that can walk that journey with you. He's walked it himself, and he offers coaching to people who have family businesses. I mean, his coaching skills are fantastic for anybody, but that is his specialty. And he is our professional of the year. Co-owner of Inspire Coaching Group, Dave Shields, is back with us. Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Doing fantastic, Steve. How are you doing?
I am good. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to talking about our topic today, which essentially is the three H's that you navigate from when you coach people. Nobody else does it the way you do it. And, you know, the word harmony is one of those H's, and we've identified that last time we got together.
Yes.
Before we dig into it, why don't we go through the three H's and how they apply to coaching, how they apply to moving somebody's business and life forward, like harmony. How does that look to you when you're working with people?
Well, I'm not a musical guy, but I like the word harmony. Kind of stole it from the music genre, right? And it really talks about, once we get things lined up, we have some discovery, and we start to make some adjustments individually or in a group setting in the family business, and that once all those moving parts really begins to come together, then we start to have a harmony. Kind of a natural rhythm to a family business, or even just a family meeting, like a family council meeting, right? That could be just beautiful to see.
Harmony is a great word. It just feels good,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And when you apply it to a family business, there's got to be harmony. You have that because you have family members together. But I'm going to peel back some layers here. How often do you find that there are challenges with family businesses that we don't have in other business situations? Is it on a 10 scale? And I'm not being negative here. It just is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's different dynamics involved. When you look at it that way, scale of 1 to 10, 1, never any problems whatsoever. In your view, where would you put that? Where would you put that scale?
Well, at any given point in time for a family business, I'd probably put it at around a 6 or a 7. And so
Sure.
there are many beautiful things about being in business as a family, right? There's shared vision, shared hopes and dreams. There's a kind of a coalescing of that, especially right at the very beginning of launching a family business. That can be beautiful. And then as things progress, family dynamics and just have a way of coming on in. We don't just leave the family dynamics at the door of a family business. They walk right in with us, and therefore we have to deal with those kinds of things. Sometimes for families, things come up in business that didn't come up prior in their family situation. But many times, I'd say probably most of the time, families bring their dynamics with them. And so there may have been unresolved issues, and there
Yes.
always is with any family, right? No matter how great the family is, there's always unresolved issues that travel into the business and then start to manifest in ways that are frustrating, and can be costly for the business.
I have a marketing company as well, and I never thought of this until we're talking now. Half of those clients are family businesses. And as you're speaking here, Dave, I'm seeing movies play in my head of those dynamics, and
Yes,
big challenges in a few of those businesses I'm referring to. One, just the other day, we're talking about mother, father, son, some others involved. And in that situation, it can be crippling because decisions can't be made because everybody's going by, well, I have this idea. What about that? I'm not really on board for that. And it goes around to where it takes longer to move things forward. Do you find that is a challenge?
It is, and what first comes to mind is the governance structure. And many times in just a standard S corp, let's say, we have lots of roles and the distribution of those roles and responsibilities, and those are set in place oftentimes before that business really gets rolling. In family businesses, it's always a little bit different, or oftentimes it's a little bit different in that we kind of move into things naturally or instinctively as family members, and we each begin to assume this is my responsibility, this is what her responsibilities, with really no clear delineation of who's going to do what. And then there's the whole accountability piece. So who's going to do what, and then how are we going to hold each other accountable?
I was going to ask you that in terms of defining whose role is what. And then you also have the challenges where somebody's not staying in their lane. And if it was a non-family business, in my view, most times you would stay in your lane. That's his,
Mhm.
he needs to make that decision. That's his department. But when you have a family dynamic, you have different lanes going on there. And many times somebody's looking over to the other one. No, 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 that's a bad idea. Don't, no. You get that a lot. That's what I'm seeing here, right?
Yeah, one family business comes to mind that I'm working with. Have been working with this family business for about a year now, and the lady partner in this business, she's been in this business with her partner for 20 some years, and she likes to drift into the boss lane in particular areas of the business where she really has no business being a
Mm,
part of that. And so I've done two things. One is I've begun to work with her and her partner, to really talk about what are the expectations, where do I
yeah.
need you, where do I need you to lead, and where do I want to be able to lead myself? And the other part of it was just also doing some assessment with her around, yeah, she's kind of a champion. She's kind of a big justice person. So anytime she sees inequality or issues in the business, she likes to come to the fore and really take charge. But that's not always most convenient, or sometimes even embarrassing for the husband in this scenario,
Mm.
when she steps out of line and calls somebody into accountability that's really his responsibility to do that with.
So you say, and we're going to get to the other two H's. We're on harmony at this moment.
Yes.
When we talk about you working with this business for, say a year, how
Mhm.
does that look? What are some of the things that you're doing along the way to help them move forward?
Well, it always starts out with what I call the discovery phase. And in that phase, we're doing lots of assessment. I do a Myers-Briggs test with folks. I do an Enneagram test with folks, and I do a Clifton Strengths Finder so that we can really begin to ferret out the personality, the temperament, and the natural talent of each individual family member in such a way that that's more clear. And then we can begin to see where folks are aligned or misaligned in some of their job duties or roles. And then we move from there. So then we start some adjustment period, where folks begin to take on maybe new responsibilities, and or get the training, really the leadership training they need. A lot of these folks in family businesses move into positions that they're just not trained for. And due
Mhm.
to that lack of knowledge and sometimes simple ignorance, they make mistakes that are costly in the relationships in the business, but also costly to the business in general. And so we have to sometimes get somebody up to speed, right? We got to get them on the same page. We got to get them the kind of training that they require for that particular position. And so we start to do some moving parts. I usually institute some kind of a family meeting. If it's a couples owned business, we'll do some couples business meetings. If it's a family owned business in general, oftentimes we'll do a family council meeting at least once a month, where I begin to implement some clear communication strategies for folks to be authentic, who they are, to be able to speak their truth, and to not hold back. Like, one of the mistakes that we make in family business is we love our family members, right? And so we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Mm.
And so sometimes we hold back things that really need to be put on the table so that folks, does it sometimes hurt to give a family member feedback? Yeah. Sometimes it hurts to give the feedback, but other times it hurts to receive it. But the truth is I tell folks who are reticent to share honestly, I say you're really preventing them, holding them back from a lesson that they can learn from. Pain usually brings or inspires change, and so getting somebody to uncomfortable or even in pain can be an
Mm.
impetus for them to begin to look at themselves and their skill set and know where they need to heal and grow.
I would assume when somebody's working with you, it's your job to deliver the pain. Because
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
you're you're the face of honesty. This is somebody's role is not well defined, or they're not the right person in that role. And I can see how that can organically change, where the family business started, then somebody took on a different aspect of it, and it was like, just save money. We'll get, Johnny will do it. Johnny will do. Johnny doesn't know how to do it. He's got 4 different roles, but we threw that one on him anyway because he's doing us a solid by saving money, but in the long run, not working. And now maybe they compensated Johnny extra. Now, how do you tell Johnny we need somebody else? We need to hire
yes,
somebody else. And
yes,
if it's not part of the family, it is what it is. So let's go
yeah.
to the other H's. Pick one.
Sure, sure. Hope is the one that I really kind of had my mind on today, and even over the course of the last week, and so that's one of our driving values. And I think that sometimes by the time folks get to me in a family business, or even for somebody for life coaching or couples coaching, that there's a lot of despair and hopelessness. Sometimes I find that I have to hold the hope for a client until they can begin to feel hopeful themselves and begin to have that be a driving force for them. And I was thinking that this is a little bit kind of theory stuff, right? But it's interesting. I wrote an article a couple of weeks ago called "The Case Against Hope," and that for me was really inspired by one of my coaching clients who was a part of a family business for 15 years. I got him while he was
Wow.
still in this family business, and he had well, a little bit about his story. He was in the family business, completely unfulfilling for him. He was semi-depressed or mildly depressed. And really didn't have a lot of hope that things could be any different than that. So he was in his 30s by the time I got to him, and really had experienced some adversity in the family business, but also personally, and then of course, not the least of which is the whole adversity that the pandemic brought for all of us, right? And so with him, I had to kind of hold the hope for him until he could
Wow.
begin to do it for himself. But even as he progressed, in this article I wrote, "The Case Against Hope," you begin to understand a little bit um, why not having hope is protective, right? We don't want to, you've heard the phrase, right? Don't get your hopes too high.
Mm.
Right. And there's a protective mechanism to not having hope. It protects us against the fall, right? It protects us against disappointment. It protects us against possible failure. If I don't go for it, then I don't have to experience failure, and some of those kinds of things. And so even with this gentleman, I still coach
Oh.
him today. I started with him about a year and a half ago, and he had a dream of being in law enforcement. And early in that process, he really didn't. He thought maybe he was too old. He really didn't have hope that he could would somebody really want me for a position like that. And nobody had really helped him to dream a little bit for the future and then have the hope accompany that. So I helped him start to dream. And then with the dream became some action. With the action, he started to get back in shape, paying particular attention to some parts of his body that he had injured previously. He began to study. Never felt like he was a good student prior to that.
Mm.
His wife began to tutor him in math, and so he began to take. He had the dream. He began to take the steps necessary to put himself in a position to be considered by a law enforcement agency. And then as things progressed, he started applying. And then he got interviews, and he was terrified of the interviews, and the interviews were daunting. in actuality, but he got through those. He passed the physical exam. And then the day finally came. There was a long pause, I think maybe 6 weeks, where he didn't hear anything back. Of course, his mind was immediately like, well, you know what? They didn't want me. I'm not good enough. I didn't pass somehow. But the truth was, and this is part of lack of hope, right? Is we tend to obsess a little bit on the despair side, right? And think about all the reasons why we were cast away. The truth was, the police department that he was working with was waiting for a new group of sworn in officers to get through their first trial in training, and so I encouraged him. Can you just email the chief of police and ask him, am I still being considered? Something simple. He did that. The response was, "Oh yeah, you're in," and
Wow.
and
Wow.
and here's your swear-in date. Well, sorry we haven't gotten back to you sooner. And then even then, when he shared that with me, I was jumping for joy for this guy. Right, this is a lifetime dream of his. Of course, he has ended up leaving the family business. That was tough for him and his family members, but it was the right move for him. But here's the kicker. Um, as I was jumping for joy on a call with him, a coaching call, he said, "Well, you never know what can happen." And I said, "Wait a minute. Did or did not the chief of police himself tell you that you were in?" He said, "Yes." He goes, "But you know what? You never know what could happen."
Mm.
And so even with that kind of progress, the physical training, the mental training, the education, passing the exam, passing the interviews, passing the physical exam, and then getting invited personally by the chief of police, he was still kind of shy from hoping, and wanting to protect himself even there. So I joked with him a little bit. I kind of what I call the intervention of absurdity, and I said, a helicopter could crash into your car on the highway, and you could break a leg, and that would certainly knock you out because then he started laughing. And so anyway, I share all that to share that sometimes the case against hope makes sense. But it takes to dare to be courage takes, excuse me, to dare to hope takes courage. And we don't want to feel foolish. We don't want to look foolish. We don't want to get too high and then have the fall back to the ground be any more devastating than it could be, right?
Wow. He just seems that he doesn't have confidence. And I give him a lot of credit for turning the car in a totally different direction. It's almost as if he feels like he has imposter syndrome. Like, I'm not good enough. I can't do this.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Steve. Are you sure you're not coaching folks on the side?
People say I should be a therapist.
Well, yeah,
So I
yeah.
want to look at the word hope for a moment here. What do you say to people who say, well, don't use the word hope, substitute will instead of I hope I get that job to I will get that job, to frame it in a more positive way, call it manifestation.
Yes, yes. Well, what's important when I work with somebody is really kind of learning their language, learning some of their strengths, and being able to then use the language that makes the most sense to them. So hope is great,
Sure.
and having a plan, having the willpower and the discipline and the determination, that those things are also as important as having hope. Yes.
I struggle with starting an email to somebody, and a lot of us say, hope you're doing great. And it's fine, but I always look for another word instead of hope that's more positive, because hope, we all need hope, but then sometimes it could be looked at as maybe desperation. Hope you're doing great. But I don't know what to substitute it with. I'm
Yeah,
lost.
yeah, yeah. It's a great word, and maybe it's gotten even a little diluted in our
Maybe.
current culture too, maybe overused. But I love the word hope,
Yeah.
and I've not always personally been a hopeful kind of guy. I've had to come through my own adversity, and I know what it was like to have despair, and to be able to then recover from that despair and rise above it. To be able to be, I say hope's one of my superpowers, and that's true for me today, but not always
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, in your mindset, you use it as a powerful motivator where you said hopeful. I'm trying to get my arms around the different ways to look at it. Hope is
Mhm.
hope, but hopeful takes it to another level where
Yes.
it's almost as you put gas in the hope, tank, and, and
Yes.
and you
Yes.
propelled it a little forward. The other H that you pilot by, what is that?
It's heart. Yeah, and with heart, what I really mean by that in the coaching I do with family members in family businesses together is really being authentic. And I said on a previous radio show with you that we're all born perfectly, but then life happens to us, and some of us even claim to have great childhoods, but life still happens to us, and we start the process of adaptation. And we begin to do that for survival, for love, for acceptance, for belonging, all very important, crucial aspects of living. And that starts as soon as we come out of the womb, right? And so the heart component, the heart value that Inspire stands for is really about getting back to who you were born to be, not necessarily who you became. And in that process of discovery, sometimes folks really discover incredible, joyful aspects of themselves that were maybe a little terrifying to show when they were kids. And they then in life today can start to play with it, or really stretch into it a little bit, and see if they can be more authentically themselves, and that it's safe to do so.
Hmm. Heart is everything. It
Mm,
really is when you put that heart into it. Um, and I believe it's also energy. And I don't know if you subscribe
uh,
to the transfer of energy, but when they say that, yeah, grandma put her heart into that dish, I think it's a certain amount of energy that she put into it, positive energy that made the
yes,
dish better. So
yes.
when you put your heart into something, you're putting a positive energy, positive spin into it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My
Mm.
brother does that. He loves people through his cooking,
Ah,
and it shows. And I think you're right that food may taste better because of the heart that was put into it. That vibration or that energy that you talk about. I do subscribe to that. As well as some pieces around just really lost my train of thought for a moment there, but um
it makes a difference in the where everything's energy. Your energy, I'm
yes,
energy.
yes, yes,
Um, Fantastic talking with you. Yeah, this you
yes.
as a coach, you have heart. There's no other way to describe
Oh,
it. You
thank
really,
you.
really do. And you harness that heart in terms of working with people. How does somebody do it, Dave? How do they connect with you?
You can go to inspire-coaching.us. You can give us a call at area code 317-721-7478. Or you can just shoot me an email at dave@inspire-coaching.us, and we can connect. Always my first sessions are free. I call them discovery calls, and it's really an opportunity for us both to get to know each other. The fit has to be right both directions, not just one direction. I need to feel as though I could have a great benefit for you. And you need to get a beginning sense in that discovery session that you can trust me a little bit with some of your most sensitive needs.
I've learned a lot here, but one thing that stands out is it's not important to have a coach for a family business. It's critical. It's critical. And I
Yeah.
see it working with family businesses. It is
Yes. Yes.
critical. And I can't think of one that runs seamlessly. And they have challenges sometimes even more than non-family run businesses. Dave, thanks for being here today. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me, Steve. You have a great rest of your day, unless you've made other plans.
Now, why would I do that? Why would I do that? Uh, and
Okay.
I hope your day goes well as well.
Yes, thank you.
All right,
All
we'll talk
right.
soon. We'll be right
Bye-bye.
back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
when I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.